As long as you do your part.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. The time's 9 a.m., 9:04 a.m. We're here for a regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here. Thank you. 5 board members are present. At this time, I'd like to welcome Bishop John Smith from Lily of the Valley Church for the invocation.
Got the wrong agenda. You got the
Who
minutes.
pushed?
Bishop Tyler.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Tyler
Pastor
Jones.
Tyler Jones. financial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please pray for us.
Will do. Happy holidays, everyone. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Father, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you in your word. It says, it is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. So, Father, I just pray over this board meeting today that they feel the presence of you, God, that they feel that you're with them through the decision making and through the solution making, my God. And I just pray over them that they would just have a peace of mind this morning in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Please join us in the pledge of allegiance.
I would pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Put on the glasses so I don't make any more dumb mistakes. Hey. All right. Okay. Next item is unscheduled appearances. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody
I did,
online or speaker cards first?
thank you. For the record, I did receive correspondence from Giovanna Isardro from Valley Voices, and that will become part of the permanent record. The board did receive copies electronically and hard copies. And then my first speaker card this morning is Dave Clevenger.
Morning, Mr. Clevenger.
Good morning, everyone.
Sure.
Thanks for just an opportunity to come up and give you an update about the Kings Triangle Courtyard project. Since we last were in front of you, there were a couple of new surprises that were along the way from old work, such as needing to redirect some of the water and sewer on 4 units that were actually on the back side where they should have been on the front side like the rest of the units. The fire main needed to be dug and re-inspected because that was never completed with the previous contractor. So we've got holes down there. And a few other things that have caused additional labor, additional time. So at this point, I feel like all of the old work has been corrected. There's no new surprises because everything else is on top now that's remaining. And so it's putting rock in for the drive surface. We have the drive surface already in storage. It's this plastic grid stuff that's already down there in the recycling center area, similar to that. Curbs, sidewalks, and then HVAC units that go inside of each of the unit. So there's a little bit left to do on it. But we're sort of waiting for more funding to come in to finish off those particulars. So that's the latest update. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Everybody good?
Yeah, we're good.
Appreciate the update, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Hope
Christmas.
you have a great holiday.
Thanks, sir.
Our next speaker is Wendy Osakafo.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Just as a quick follow-up to that, I will be coming back, hopefully in January, possibly in early February with a proposal to close the funding gap so we can complete this project. The delay is just the state making things unnecessarily complicated, in my opinion. But we need to align any additional funding with the restrictive covenants and the current standard agreement. So we're just trying to get all the technical wording around the property identification correct. So that may push us a little bit into late January, early February, but I'm shooting for as early as possible to come in with a proposal for you all to review and consider. What I wanted to share is just to on a separate topic is related to our foster youth toy drive. And just to let inform the board and to just publicly thank some of the agencies and individuals that stepped forward. We had just a tremendous response from the community this year. We've been doing this for, well over 15 years. Everybody keeps tracing back and no one can remember when it started, but it's in everybody's memory that it's always been going on. But this year we just had a tremendous response. And all of the wish lists for all of our foster youth have been met. And in fact, we have some additional gifts for any youth that may come into care over the next few weeks. So I just wanted to call out a few agencies for some public recognition and appreciation. Coalinga State Hospital took on 111 wish lists. Avenal State Prison, 50 wish lists. Kings County Public Health, in total, their team took on 34 wish lists. Kings County Probation, 22 wish lists. Office of Education, 20. Kings County Parole, 15. Hanford Rotary, 15. Naval Air Station Ramore under Lieutenant Hannah Pickett and her command, 10 wish lists. Kings County Behavioral Health really adopted a family. The children weren't in foster care, but they were in family maintenance, which is after you've been in foster care and your family's done what they need to have the children safely return. They were able to provide a lot for that entire family. We also had Walmart step forward and ask how they could participate for the holidays and also throughout the year. And then finally, Jim Sanders, on behalf of the marketplace at Hanford Shopping Center, went on his staff. Diane and Kendra went on a $2,000 shopping spree and were really able to round out all the remaining gifts that we needed for our youth. So we're just really appreciative of the community. I wanted to take a minute to say thank you and make sure the board was aware. Thanks.
Good job.
Our next speaker is Lupe Villa.
Good morning, Mr. Villa.
Members of the board, how you guys doing this morning?
Well, sir.
I would like to give you guys a brief update on the upcoming March 5th primary election. As you know, the nomination period started November 13th and we ran through December 8th. There's 2 offices that went to an extension, meaning that the incumbent did not file for office. Those 2 offices was Congressional District 20, which is Kevin McCarthy, and Assembly District 33, Devin Mathis. We had 9 judges. We have 9 judges in Kings County. 6 were up for election. All 6 judges filed. They're unopposed, and per code, they will not be in your March 5th ballot. They won't appear on the ballot. We have District 2, Mr. Sherman also went unopposed, so congratulations to you on 4 years.
Thank you. Did I get a raise? No, I'm fine.
Yeah, talk to Curia. The contest is going to appear on the ballot, so we can allow for a write-in candidate if they choose to put in their name for the district. And that period starts January 8th, 2024. It's going to run through February 20th, 2024. And any write-in candidate may file for office. All they have to do is come into our office. We'll walk them through the process. There's no filing fee, but they're not allowed to do a candidate statement because it's so late in the game. But they're more than welcome to come to my office and we can walk them through that process. We also have District 5 going on the ballot, and Mr. Fagundes, the incumbent, has 3 challengers, and I'll be on the March 5th election. We also have Area 3 and 5 of the Republican Central Committee that will be going on the ballot for the first time that I know of. Those 2 areas will be on the ballot. Area 3 has 7 seats, 8 people qualified for those seats. Area 5 has 6 seats and 7 people qualified for the seats. So those 2 will be up for election on March 5th. Also, the Secretary of State's office will be issuing the official list of candidates on December 28th, which is during our closure. So we'll have that list when we come back on January 2nd. The Congressional District has approximately 14 candidates so far today. Congressional District 22 will have the incumbent, Mr. Valadeo, with 3 challengers. Assembly District 33 has 6 candidates. The incumbent, Mr. Mathis, will not be running for re-election. We're also focusing on recall efforts that are impacting the recent school districts. So there is a community group that started the efforts to do a recall of the entire board of recent school district. So far, the process, we're in the petition certification process, which means we go back and forth until that petition is approved by my office. Once that petition is approved, then we'll walk them through the process of gaining or gathering the signatures that are required to recall that board. And again, that is the entire board. So if that was to happen, it's going to happen sometime in June, July of 2024. Regarding Congressional District 20, we're waiting for the official resignation from Mr. McCarthy. Depending on when that resignation is submitted, we might have a special election here in Kings County that covers Kings, Fresno, Kern, and Tulare County. So depending on when that resignation is submitted, the governor does have the appointment authority if that resignation is submitted after January 1st, 2024. If the resignation is submitted before then the governor has 14 days to call the election. So with that said, do you guys have any questions for me?
The Avenel recall, sir, thank you for all the information clarifying up the upcoming elections. If all 5 board members, school board members get recalled, then is there another election? Because I know this is going to be expensive.
Yes.
Is there another election or is that an appointment?
No,
by the
that'll
board
be
of
another
Education?
election. So the recall for Reef Sunset is going to be a challenge. I reached out to my counterparts throughout the state and the Secretary of State's office. We have 2 members, 2 elected officials from that board that were elected prior to the redistricting and 3 that were elected after redistricting. So we have to conduct or hold special precincts or special maps for those 2 seats compared to the other 3. But if any of those get booted out of office or the recall is successful and they get, they choose to recall them and get them out of the office, yeah, we're gonna have a special election. So it'll be a March primary, a potential recall for Sunset, potential special for Congressional District 20, and then our November general election. So.
It's a lot of money. I hope we get reimbursed for a bunch of that.
So for the only reimbursement that you're gonna be seeing is gonna be for the Reef Sunset School District. And we're looking at, if all 5 seats were to get recalled, I would put it between $150,000 to $170,000 for the cost of that recall election. If we have to administer that election for them. So that money would be reimbursed to the county. We'll, upfront pay all the bills that are attached to the election and then submit reimbursement to the school district, the Reef Sunset School District.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
A lot
you.
of money.
Questions for Mr. Villa?
Yep.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Thank you so much. Hope you guys have happy holidays. Take care.
You too, sir.
The next speaker is Giovanna Isidoro.
Good morning.
Morning. I'm Giovanna Isidoro, and I'm currently a high school student attending Hanford West. I'm 17 years old. And I'm from District 4. I live in District 4, so Rusty Robinson is my representative. Today I'm here to say that I'm as a youth in our community, I want to know what our Board of Supervisors are doing to help invest in the youth in our community. I believe that we don't have much to offer for our youth to do. We do have parks, but we don't have much to do that is low cost or inexpensive for our community to be offered, like safe spaces to go. I think it is important for our youth to have these things because it's good for our development to go out and without having to possibly get in trouble for the things that we would want to do. There's a lot of loitering places. The only places that we are seen to go are parks and stuff, but there's not much to do at a park as a teenager. And so I think that's something that we should look forward into investing and just to keep in mind. I think that this is very important, like I said, because it's important for us as youth to go out instead of being home by ourselves. We've all been through that, especially with quarantine throughout COVID-19. And that was hard for a lot of people, especially the youth, because we didn't have that social interaction that is important for our development. So I think today I just request that we have something to offer to our youth and plans or proposals that we will bring into our county just for us to have offered to us. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for organizing your thoughts in the email. The board all has a copy of it. Good work. Good job. Anybody else?
The next speaker is Red Fidiasi.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Red Fidiasi. I am also a high school student. I'm 17 years old. I go to Hanford High. This year I started econ. So we do a semester of econ, a semester of government. I did econ first with Miss King. And we've started talking about our elected officials to lead into government. So I am incredibly privileged. My mother is very involved. So I know my state senator, I know who my congressman is, I know that I live in District 4, and Rusty Robinson is my representative for the supervisors. I haven't met you. I briefly know who you are because I was friends with Mr. Robinson, who did the catering at the Art Center, who organized things, who died last year. But I feel I would love to be involved more. It is definitely a challenge to be involved because these meetings are at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm either in school or I work. So I'm at work, which I'm incredibly lucky that my work encourages civic engagement. I would like to request to move the meetings to a later time so that I can be involved, so that more people who work can be involved. I know that my mom likes to come to these meetings, but she is also at work. She's on the Zoom though. I also think it's important to be able to include as many people as possible. Hay tantas personas que hablan español que no entienden qué estamos hablando. We need translators so that people can understand what we're saying. And thank you.
Hey, thank you for your comments. Appreciate you.
The next speaker is Araceli Barrios.
Arios. Good morning.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Araceli Barrios. Trabajo para Valley Voices. Yo solo hablo español. Y quisiera recordarles, antes que finalice el año, que estamos esperando interpretación simultánea español, ¿verdad? Pedimos varias semanas y al final Richard nos dijo que podía intentar que empleados bilingües hicieran algo para comenzar. Y nos da gusto eso, pero pues estamos esperando, ¿verdad? A mí me gustaría entender completamente lo que se dice en cada junta, también la comunidad hispana y trabajadores del campo. Yo estoy tomando clases de inglés, también tratando de mejorar. Yo estudié en la Universidad de México, pero llegué adulta aquí y es más difícil agarrar el idioma inglés más rápido, pero me estoy esforzando y espero tomen en cuenta mi petición, y es muy importante la comunicación, y yo estoy feliz de trabajar con la comunidad y más con los trabajadores del campo que no hablan inglés y que aportan tanto al país con su trabajo. Y les doy las gracias a todos ustedes y que pasen una feliz Navidad. Bendiciones.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's
Being cognizant of the fact that you all don't understand what she just said, I'm going to briefly interpret. This is Araceli Barrios, and
Steve Robinson knows Spanish pretty
Un
good.
poquito solamente.
I understood what you said.
okay, so she is happy to be here once again. She's typically here. We started coming weekly at the end of August. And for various weeks, we requested simultaneous interpretation. That is something that's very important to not only Araceli, but a lot of the community, even though most of them can't come on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And what she mentioned was that after our requests for 5 weeks, we did meet with Chairman Valle, and he expressed that he had some conversations that they were going to try to see if bilingual employees would be able to interpret just to get started. And we have not seen that. We do appreciate the consideration, but we are still waiting. And I know that it might be hard to consider that, being that you don't see very many people here that speak Spanish, but not very many people are like Araceli and feel comfortable coming to a place where they don't understand anything. So she also expressed that she loves working with the community. She works at Valley Voices. She is my colleague. She worked in farm work for over 20 years. So she's keenly aware of the struggles in our community, and it's something that we encounter every day, every time we're out in the community, feeding people in 2 different districts, providing them with COVID-19 PPE or whatever questions that they have. So we would like to see, hopefully in the new year, that something is done to be able to aid her and other community members who want to come in understanding, because she wants to understand fully, like the rest of the folks here this morning, what is being said. And unfortunately, while I can interpret after the fact, I don't do justice to the very technical skill that is simultaneous interpretation. And she thanks you all for the consideration, and she wants to wish you all a very happy and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. 2 things real quick. One, the meeting with you, I offered, as you just reiterated, county employees who are bilingual to come in and speak. You guys didn't want that because you said that wasn't, how can you possibly trust that if it's a county employee that is just relaying what's being said? You wanted someone neutral. So then from there, I said that the talks with the clerks and any simultaneous translation would be difficult in this room, but we have a very high, a nice technology boardroom being built. And that's where I, on multiple occasions, communicated with you to say, look, it's probably not going to be in here, but we're working at options, and that you've been heard. And so I just want the whole picture laid out.
Yeah, thank you for that. And for the record, while you did say that, at the end of the meeting, we did say, okay, well, that is a start. And so we were under the impression that an effort was going to be made, even though we felt it wasn't enough.
So
Or-
you're fine if a county employee starts off with translating.
Yes, because it shows effort and it's a step in the right direction. And that's what we said at the end of the meeting.
Which is what I wanted to do, was show some good faith on there and let you know that you've been heard on there.
Okay,
So,
thank you. I just wanted
appreciate
to, also give that for the record.
Okay, thank you.
That's the last speaker card that we have, and it doesn't appear anyone online has their hand raised.
Anyone else in the chambers? Nope, going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes. Report out of closed session from the regular meeting for December 12th, 2023. Council, is there anything?
There's nothing to report.
Item B, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting for December 12th, 2023.
Still move for boom. Second.
Motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes, 5 in favor. Consent calendar is up next. There's 3 items. They've been listed publicly on the agenda. If there's no questions or comments, Chair will entertain a motion. Motion by Robinson, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes, 5 in favor. Now we're on to regular agenda items. First one comes from Behavioral Health Department. We have a couple of items to consider. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. First off, I'd like to say the reason I'm wearing the hat is because we have Dress Up Week here at Kings County Behavioral Health with our Boosters Club. So today is Cozy Hat Day. So I have it on, but I will take it off. So so the topics we're going to go over.
Nice look.
I was like, I believe in Santa Claus. And I thought, does that mean I believe in Supervisor Nevs? I don't. I don't want it to seem that I'm partialing one over the other. Also, congratulations, Chairman, for your recent nuptials and for your impressive ring.
Thank you.
Christy Lepke, Deputy Director with Kings County Behavioral Health. Also joining us is Dr. Lewis, who is joining virtually, as this landed during a pre-scheduled vacation that she was unable to avoid. So I am before your board this morning to request approval for 4 items on the regular agenda. The first item is to request your approval for an agreement with Willow Glen Care Center for residential board and care services for adult mental health consumers. In 2010, Willow Glen Care Center developed the licensed adult residential facility Casa del Rio here in Kings County. This adult residential facility is a boarding care program that has 16 beds and is licensed through the California Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing Division. A boarding care is a residential facility that provides 24/7 supervision and support to its residents, including assistance and monitoring and taking medications, scheduling treatment appointments, transportation, performing daily living skills such as housekeeping, meals, grooming, and hygiene, with the overall goal of transitioning to independent living that doesn't require 24/7 supervision. Prior to 2010, all adult mental health consumers who were in need of boarding care services had to seek these services out of county. This caused them to be displaced from their natural community supports, such as their churches, primary care physicians, and other medical needs that they had already engaged with, family and friends, etc. This also caused them to move outside their mental health treatment team jurisdiction. Thus, this disrupted their mental health services as they transitioned to their new temporary county of residence. And of course, when their boarding care needs no longer were needed, they would have to transition again their mental health services back to this county. The ability to have a boarding care within Kings County helps reduce the number of consumers who experience these disruptions. While this facility has reduced the number of consumers needing to go out of county for boarding care services, there are still times when the need for these services exceeds the number of beds available. During these moments, Kings County Behavioral Health has been able to use Willow Glen Care Center's other facilities that are out of county and does so through single case agreements. To reduce the number of single case agreements, though, when these situations arise, and to make for a timelier process, which is of clinical relevance, Kings County Behavioral Health engaged Willow Glen Care Center into contract negotiations to amend this Casa del Rio contract to encompass the use of all Willow Glen Care facilities when clinically needed. This amendment to the Willow Glen Care Center Agreement number 21047, which expired June 30th, 2023, is brought before your board today and includes the local Casa del Rio facility and now the other out-of-county Willow Glen Care Center facilities. Contract negotiations took longer than expected and were especially impacted by staffing changes, which processes have been reviewed and revised to ensure staffing changes have less of an impact on business continuity moving forward. Due to the delays during negotiation, this contract is retroactive to July 1st, 2023, and the approval will cover the execution of the contract and the unpaid costs incurred during negotiations, which is $13,328. I respectfully request your board's approval of this agreement and the unpaid costs. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments?
I'll move it presented.
Motion by Verboen. Second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thank
Item
you.
passes 5 in favor. Your next item?
Okay. The second item I have before your board is to request the approval of an agreement with the Kings County Behavioral Health Joint Powers Authority, which is the California Mental Health Services Authority, AKA CalMesa, for their ability to negotiate with the California Department of State Hospitals on rates for state hospital beds and the approval of the memorandum of understanding with the California Department of State Hospitals and CalMesa for the purchase of those state hospital beds. CalMesa was established in 2009 as a Joint Powers Authority, a JPA, for the purpose of public services coming together across multiple county behavioral health departments to jointly exercise common requirements, therein creating a means to provide services in a more efficient and cost-effective manner. To date, all 58 counties are a member of this JPA. During the April 2012 CalMesa Annual Strategic Planning Session, CalMesa began working with the California Behavioral Health Directors Association, CBA, to explore the feasibility of the JPA, acting on behalf of the counties to develop an annual purchase agreement for state utilization of state hospital beds with the Department of State Hospitals, as provided for under Section 4330 of the Welfare and Institutions Code. Counties were collectively paying $90 to $130 million
for the procurement of state hospital beds and expressed their concern regarding the non-negotiable annual rate increases of 22% imposed by the Department of State Hospitals year by year. As a JPA, it was determined CalMesa can effectively negotiate and contract with the Department of State Hospitals for the use of state hospital beds, providing for more consistency and leverage in negotiation power on behalf of the collective participating counties. CalMesa did successfully negotiate a new purchase agreement with the Department of State Hospitals, collectively saving the counties millions of dollars each year. The local impact to Kings County was the reduction of rate increases from the aforementioned 22% to the latest negotiation, which shows an increase of only 1% from fiscal year 22-23 to fiscal year 23-24 through 24-25. Based on the bed purchases, this could potentially result in a savings of $255,000 to Kings County, which otherwise would have been paid if the rates had increased 22% each fiscal year. As this agreement requires both the state as a negotiation party, as well as the coordination between CalMesa on behalf of the rest of the counties, you can imagine that this process is a lengthy one. Historically, by the time these have been presented to the board, they are already retroactively beginning, often to cover a period back to the beginning of the prior fiscal years for which the new rates went into effect. As is the case in this agreement before the board today, because the state usually doesn't negotiate until around the end of the year. So all of our state contracts tend to hit a retroactive that's unavoidable by the department. I respectfully request your board's approval of this participation agreement with CalMesa pertaining to the negotiation of state hospital bed rates and your approval of the memorandum of understanding with the California Department of State Hospitals and CalMesa for the purchase of those state hospital beds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Cheryl, entertain a motion.
So moved. Verboen.
Motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more item
Yes.
or two more?
Two more. So the third item I have before your board this morning on regular agenda is to request your board's approval of a resolution to delay implementation of Senate Bill 43, SB 43, no later than January 1, 2026, due to the lack of state-provided funding for implementation of this new Senate bill, as well as the time needed to develop the systems and supports for a successful implementation. I will say also for the time for state facilities across the state to catch up with this bill, because as of current, if it were to go into effect January 1st, there are no substance use disorder locked facilities for these individuals that I'll be discussing to go into, even if we were to start January 1st. So they would end up staying in the ED and not really sure where they would go from there. During October 2023, the California State Legislature passed Senate Bill 43, which amends sections within the Health and Safety Code and Welfare and Institutions Code related to mental health. Senate Bill 43 makes several significant changes to the state's involuntary detention and conservatorship laws under the LPS Act. The intent of the LPS Act was to end the inappropriate, indefinite, and involuntary commitment of persons with mental health disorders. It also established a right to prompt psychiatric evaluation and treatment during involuntary detention and set out strict due process protections for those under involuntary detention and conservatorship. So SB 43 makes the following changes, and this is really a summary of those changes. It expands the state's gravely disabled criteria to allow for involuntary detention and conservatorship of individuals on the basis of a standalone severe substance use disorder or co-occurring mental health disorder and severe substance use disorder. That's probably one of the most prominent changes that is posing the most significant challenge at this time, which is the cause for the delay, which is right now involuntary detention. So 5150 process, as well as potential conservatorship process, is extended to those who are experiencing a mental health condition that poses a great risk to themselves, to others, or it causes them to be gravely disabled. So this, by and large, is extending it to now those individuals who might have a standalone substance use disorder, such as an addiction to illicit drugs or alcoholism. This also expands the definition of gravely disabled to those who are unable to provide for their basic needs for personal safety or necessary medical care. It also then defines necessary medical care. It modifies hearsay evidentiary standards for conservatorship hearings to expand the array of testimony that can be submitted into conservatorship proceedings without requiring in-person cross-examinations. And it requires counties to consider less restrictive alternatives such as assisted outpatient treatment, AOT, or also known as Laura's Law, and care court in conducting conservatorship investigations. SB 43 also expands reporting requirements that align with the new criteria related to these changes and allows counties to delay implementation until January 1, 2026 through adoption of a county board resolution. At this time, most of the 58 counties within the state have expressed their intent to or have already gone to their boards to request a resolution for delayed implementation. And as of our knowledge to date, all those who have gone before their board have received an approval to delay to try to allow for us to have a unified approach across the state to develop these. The only county that we do know that is going to be implementing January 1st at this time is San Francisco. The impacts of this legislation are extensive and will require the partnership of behavioral health, public guardian, Adventist health emergency departments, law enforcement agencies, including the sheriff's department and the courts, to fully address, assess, and implement the required changes locally. Additionally, the lack of funding related to the passage of these changes is one of significance due to the clear need for all of these entities that are impacted to increase resources and training. Kings County Behavioral Health plans to work with the aforementioned local partners and has already begun reaching out and getting conversations started on the impacts that this may have. And we'll also work with the California Behavioral Health Directors Association and have been doing so to collaborate with other counties, state, and federal partners to continue to assess the impacts, develop action plans, and will later bring back a study session to this board regarding the proposed local measures that will be required to implement these changes and possibly the funding that might be needed as well. At this time, I respectfully request your board's approval of a resolution to delay implementation of Senate Bill 43 to January 1, 2026 to identify funding and allow for the time necessary to develop the systems and supports for a successful implementation, as well as to allow other state facilities that will then need to receive these individuals to catch up with this Senate bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have questions.
Superintendent?
So, I mean, this is important. This is real important in the time of our homeless and our people with drug addictions or alcohol addictions, and we need this. So the state passed this, but the state's not ready. So most of the counties have agreed to wait 2 years. Now, to me, this is something that should have been done years ago. And waiting doesn't really solve the problem unless everybody gets their act together and starts working on it. You know, we go to DC twice a year looking for funds. We go to Sacramento at least 4 to 5 times a year looking for funds. This needs to be on radar. It needs to be in our legislative platform. It needs to be in the hands of our lobbyists. So I would like to see a little more proactive approach on this. I don't see waiting 2 years is going to be a big deal. I think we can always start it slowly. I mean, if you help one person, you've done a great deal. So waiting 48 months, 24 months to let someone else catch up is kind of insulting. I mean, I'll agree with you today, but we can start in smaller steps doing this to our community, help people that can't help themselves, people that can't make good decisions for themselves. This is a tough time of year for people living on the streets that have, you know, over abused alcohol or drugs or had some kind of mental hang up that can't make that choice. We can't tell them you got to get help. They have to make that choice themselves. So this helps that. This helps with that process to get them to make the sobriety to help them make good choices. So I think we need to, I mean, there's a lot of homeless collaboratives, there are a lot of people doing stuff for people, but nothing gets done. This helps us take the next step. So waiting 2 years is kind of an insult to people that are sleeping on the streets or people that have mental illness. That's forever to them. So we need to start on this as soon as possible. The first of the year, we're going to schedule a plan. We're going to sit down and see what I can do to help and get pointed in the right direction.
Agreed. Thank you. We have discussed that I will be starting to draft a legislative platform to be able to equip the Board of Supervisors with the information necessary to be able to assist in garnering any other kind of state funding or assistance that we can receive from this legislator, as well as during 2024, the steps that we'll be taking that will better successfully implement this is that we do the RFP in Tulare County closed for the mobile crisis. We are able to piggyback on that. They've sent out a letter of intent to the awarded vendor. With that, we're now able to enter into contract negotiations with that awarded vendor, kind of parallel to Tulare County's negotiations so that we can have that in place. So mobile crisis program will be in place in 2024, as well as we've started the conversations with and are in a work group with Superior Court's leading, and it has a lot of other of these similar partners involved regarding the implementation of CarePort, which is required to be implemented as of December 1st, 2024, which is also a necessary support to be able to do this correctly. And so those are some of the incremental things, the legislative platform, the discussions with CarePort and getting that implemented as of December 1st, 2024, as well as the mobile crisis, which we anticipate to be implemented during the summer of 2024.
So my point is, we don't work for the courts. We don't work for the government. We work for the people. Every person in this room here today has a member of their family or a loved one that could have had some help had this been implemented a long time ago. I don't want to wait for anybody else to get their head out or butt to get this program started. We represent the people that this affects. We need to get started on this. I don't care what the court says. I don't care what anybody else says that runs government. Government put us in this position with too many rules stopping us to protect our family. So we need to protect our family in the future. So this is very serious to me. I want to get started on it as soon as possible after the first of the year.
Heard, understood.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Supervisor Bethune. Anybody else? Is the fact that this is an unfunded mandate, is that the reason why the majority of the 58 counties are asking for delay just because of money, or is it because boots on the ground were not prepared?
Yeah, the primary issue is the resource limitations. And the inability to get those resources in place within the 60 days that are kind of been allowed for this to happen. So one is if we have to get training to law enforcement who currently does detainments here in Kings County so that they know like who does this fall under? How does that scope kind of lengthen? And then if they bring them into the emergency department doesn't necessarily have the resource capacity to take in the influx of individuals that would be coming into the emergency department. And then when somebody is then detained in an emergency department, they then need to go on to typically an inpatient setting that's like a LPS inpatient setting. So right now it's the mental health hospitals. There's not a substance use disorder hospital. So the mental health hospitals don't have the capacity, nor is there scope to address those with standalone substance use disorder services. And the complexity of it is when somebody who is on mental health detainment is to go to an LPS facility. So from Adventist Health ER to say Cuya Delta Mental Health Hospital, there's no need for withdrawal management or detoxification from a substance. Here, that would add that additional layer of medical complexity for those individuals. None of that exists at this time. We do have withdrawal management, but they're not necessarily all connected to that kind of a continuity of care. And so it's being able to create those systems. And so it's really down to resources. However, with those resources, though, comes then the funding. We're going to need to increase, law enforcement might need to increase, emergency departments might need to increase, public guardian, who's going to be doing the conservatorships for these individuals will need to increase, the courts will need to increase their capacity to do conservatorship proceedings, and all of those then needs will come at a cost. And some of these departments, like public guardians, are sole net county costs. And so that will be some of the considerations there. So I would say it's more of the resource limitations to be able to execute this, and then no place to put them when somebody goes to the ER. And so it's difficult to be able to pick up somebody and initiate that treatment that they're so needing. But then the treatment place is not available. It doesn't exist. And so it
So-
almost puts us in an ethical dilemma.
So if I heard you right, even if this bill, when it passed in October of last year,
October of this year,
of this year,
just passed.
then if it magically came with a check to all the counties, we still couldn't meet the deadline. That's what I'm hearing.
Right, because even if we were able to, if it came with money and we were able to immediately start to try to grow our resources, training's not available for us. It's not out there yet for us to know even what they're including as their eligibility. But one of the biggest crux is even if we were able to get all of our ducks in a row somehow in 60 days, there's no facility for which these people were to go to.
Okay.
But is there a facility today that's available if you choose to get treatment yourself?
There is voluntary
So
treatment
what's the
centers.
difference? What's the difference? Our police can go and pick someone off the street. It's the power that gives them to get that person help instead of them making a decision on their own. So there is places out there. And so you think about what happened in 2020 with COVID. You know, the hospitals stopped getting patients. They laid their staff off. They got tons of money, millions upon millions of dollars to improve their facility to keep 5 feet or 6 feet away. The only person in our community that made use of that money was the Tachi Palace, was shut down for like 2 months, redid their place and opened back up under the guidance of the state guidance and separated all the booths of gambling for 6 feet. And they made money. The hospital laid off staff and didn't do anything. So here we are now, we're going to trust our hospitals prepare for this law that's been passed. So what authority do we have to make them do what they need to do? Do we have any authority over that?
Well, it's not that we have an authority over that. However, we have to implement this. If delayed, we have to implement it by January 1st, 2026, meaning we will work with everybody to understand the resource needs. But come the time this gets implemented, we will be then having to involuntarily detain individuals that fall under this criteria, and they go to our local emergency. So whether they expand to be able to handle this or not, they're still going to receive these individuals because we have
So
to.
it may
do our
not,
due
it may not
diligence.
work out. The hospitals don't get on board.
Right now, we've been talking with them and they're very much a partnering entity with us. And so we fully expect that all of these entities will remain a positive partnering relationship. I will go back to your question regarding the voluntary placement. While these voluntary placements are available right now for these individuals, this is really addressing the individuals who do not want voluntary services. So once the law enforcement were to detain this person under this grave disability and they qualify for that and they come into the ER, we now are required to try to find the placement that best meets their clinical need. And the voluntary treatment centers will not be those places because you have to be voluntary. They don't take those on involuntary holds. We always encourage when we're in a crisis situation, we always try to de-escalate, safety plan somebody, and then encourage them to voluntarily receive services. But for those who don't and don't want voluntary services, and we have to go through this involuntary service.
So are we going to
placement
rely
is
on the
not there.
hospitals for this service once we detain somebody and realize that they're a harm to themselves and the neighbors around them? Do we detain them at the sheriff's office or the jail before they go to the hospital? Or do we create a whole new system on our own property? Or do we still trust the hospital to do the right thing?
It would be through what they're doing now and what they do a really good job at, which is that individuals who are detained through a psychiatric crisis, they go to the emergency room, they are cleared with they're medically cleared. And then immediately the crisis team starts to work with the hospitals to find placement and get them placed. The beds across the state in the LPS mental health hospitals are always, at capacity. So we're sending out, I think, admission packets to like 1,200 places to constantly try to get individuals into the treatment places that best meets their need. And so that's how the process would be with the detention of somebody under a standalone SED. They would be picked up, go to the emergency room. They would be cleared or stabilized according to the EMTALA laws for ER, which is to stabilize and then get them placed into the most appropriate placement. So it's like if somebody comes to the ER and they have a need for emergency surgery, they stabilize them in the ER and then they get them up to the unit that's necessary to meet their next need. For this kind of psychiatric crisis and for substance use disorder, it's not within Adventist Health, it's at outside facilities of which they exist for mental health. They don't exist for SED. There are not locked SED facilities.
And will we be sued by the ACLU or anybody for affecting somebody's personal rights?
We are, We are reviewing all of the potential liabilities to all the counties through the California Behavioral Health Directors Association. And we've engaged in discussions with county council regarding what those also may be. And I think their association is reviewing what kind of liabilities this could come with, as well as even CSAC. That association is reviewing the concerns that they have.
And what part of population are we talking about here?
About
10%.
10%.
10% of population.
So 1% right now is under mental health conservatorship. This could go up to 10%.
So up to
For
4 to
that.
5 million people in California alone. Okay, thank you. I'll
Thank
make a
you.
motion to approve, as long as we're not talking about the same story in 24 months.
Agreed.
Do you want to add to your emotions, some of the concerns you have as far as ask for some kind of presentation in the early part of next year?
We'll talk about that later. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is just to pass to adopt the resolution to delay the implementation at this time. Motion by Verboen, second by Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the discussion, Madam Clerk.
Yeah. Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes 5 in favor. One more item?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the fourth.
Then give somebody else a turn. 'Cause-
I know, exactly. We're trying to fill that second deputy director position. So the fourth and last item I have before your board this morning is to request your approval for an agreement with Bay Area Addiction Research and Treatment Incorporated, aka BART, for narcotic treatment program NTP services. Your board approved agreement number 28696 on June 26, 2018 with BART for NTP services starting July 1, 2018 with auto renewal terms. This amendment before your board today updates requirements, sets a term rather than continuing auto renewal, and establishes rates under the new California Department of Healthcare Services CalAIM Behavioral Health Payment Reform Initiative, which went into effect July 1st, 2023. As mentioned before your board previously, payment reform transitions counties from cost-based reimbursement funded via certified public expenditures for fee-for-service reimbursement funded via intergovernmental transfers for specialty mental health services and drug medical services. BART provides a drug medical funded NTP program for all California drug medical eligible beneficiaries, including those who are residents of Kings County. BART services are provided at clinics in Fresno and Tulare County and are operated under the Department of Healthcare Services Substance Use Disorder Program regulations as outlined in Title IX of the California Code of Regulations. The target population for BART's NTP services are adults ages 18 and older who are opioid dependent. Never say that word right. The NTP services provided by BART include intake assessments, individual and group counseling, patient education, medication services, treatment planning, medical psychotherapy, and the provision of NTP-approved medications as prescribed by a physician to alleviate the symptoms of withdrawal from opioids. BART, as well as other providers throughout the state, provide NTP services in various counties for which Medi-Cal beneficiaries can seek out, go to, and receive treatment for narcotics addiction from any of these various providers. A Medi-Cal beneficiary is not required to go to an NTP provider within their county of residence. However, the beneficiary's Medi-Cal county of residence is financially responsible for all drug Medi-Cal covered services provided to the beneficiary by a state certified NTP provider such as BART per the county's drug Medi-Cal contract with the Department of Healthcare Services, and that reimbursement shall be through a contract or other agreement. The original agreement set forth in 2018 had a set limit of $36,164, for which the services rendered by BART have exceeded this amount by $162,851. This amendment updates the contract budget to be more aligned with Kings County Behavioral Health beneficiaries' utilization of these services. The original budget amount, when developed in 2018, was more aligned with prior service utilization, which has seen an increase over time. Since Medi-Cal beneficiaries can access NTP services from any certified NTP provider within California and the Medi-Cal county of residence for that beneficiary is responsible for provider reimbursement via contract or other agreement, the provider was able to continue services beyond the budgeted amount. Unfortunately, since this agreement was on auto renewal and with the staffing changes during the span of this contract, the budgetary issue was not identified earlier. This overage did come to light, though, while putting into place enhanced systems for program monitoring, including contracting and budget processing. The results of this work will provide greater continuity during staff changes and more inclusion and timelier contract negotiations and renewals to minimize this issue moving forward. When we did look at our contracts, we believe that this and the prior one that we talked about with Willow Glen may be the last avoidable retroactive contracts and retro costs incurred that'll be brought before your board. That is our hope and our anticipation. This agreement also has retroactive application due to the complexities with implementing the new CalAIM behavioral health payment reform rates. The associated tasks for this transition to payment reform included the following: understanding new claiming codes, setting and negotiating rates with providers, updating and associated contract language, and working through the significance of this initiative with the contract providers for each contract. However, Kings County has been a leader in the implementation and calculation of rates among all counties. And to give greater context to that, when we were discussing this with California Behavioral Health Directors Association, they've reached out to us to ask for our contracts that have been executed thus far with NTP providers with the CalAIM rates, because many of the counties, most of the counties, pass through their rates, meaning the state gives the counties a rate to say, here's the cost that you can get reimbursed for a service that's provided by this type of provider. And they give a whole list, all the services, all the providers, here's your rates. We then work with our contract providers to pass through part of that rate to those providers so that they can cover their cost, and then some to be able to allow for the flexibility they'll need to grow their staff when they need to meet higher demand in the community, as well as to do additional trainings or operational needs that they may have, like replacing vehicles, so forth and so on. We, though, keep some of that rate to ourselves. That's where the negotiation really comes into play, where we keep some of that ourselves so that we also can have the flexibility to be able to do our administrative oversight of these contracts. Most counties pass through the NTP rate that the state gave them straight 100% to the NTP providers. We did not. We were able to negotiate successfully with our NTP providers to be able to retain some of that rate for ourselves, to be able to then cover the administrative costs for the oversight of these NTP services. So at this time, I respectfully request your board's approval of this agreement and the unpaid costs.
Thanks for the presentation. Any questions or comments from the board?
I am.
Sue Robinson.
So just so I get this straight, so we were looking at the usage previously, and it's an automatic deduction. And so we're now behind in payments for 2021, 2022. What's the amount here? 162,851. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And no one contacted us when we were, I mean, I know some of this stuff happens automatically, but no one contacted us and said, you know, you're delinquent on $162,000.
So from what I've been able to develop in looking at all of this, that we were contacted, but we were contacting specific to individuals who might have been on an extended leave of absence, or they were using a contact that was no longer there. And so we've really, over this year, and we've talked about it here at the board, and I want to assure you that we've worked diligently even to bring quantifiable information here that I can go over on what we've done over the last year and a half to ensure that these kind of gaps and holes and issues don't continue further. Because in this instance, it was like, well, why did this happen? You know, I have to bring this before the board. I need to know why this happened and how are we going to make sure it doesn't happen again? And so when we were digging on that, what happened was that there was a lot of contact going to individuals who were just not here. And so when we reached out to them and said, okay, here's your new contacts. Now let's work on this, getting you guys paid. Unfortunately, it's over our contract amount. So we need to amend our contract amount. So instead of amending the contract amount for that contract that did not have all of the right requirements that we needed, we decided to delay that amendment to be able to also then renew the agreement with all of the new requirements. Unfortunately, that amendment started with individuals who have since left. And so then it was moving all of that over and trying to find all that information. So some of the things that we've done to ensure that this doesn't occur any longer is that most of our contract documents, our tracking logs and contract documents are on a Teams file so that we can have live sharing of documents instead of people that are keeping them kind of on their own drives. So we've been able to do that. We also have, and Amanda's here because she's done a ton of work with her team to be able to also make sure that we have tracking logs so we know when the contracts are expiring and then backing up to when they need to start working with negotiations and allowing for that time of negotiation within that time frame. So for instance, in December, just this month, or was it November, contracts started a contract training among all of our managers who oversee these contracts. And they have to kick off negotiations as soon as they come back from holiday closure so that contracts will get to us by March. That way that we have sufficient time to get them through our legal counsel. In addition, on the fiscal side, fiscal has created spreadsheets for each of our contracts so that the monthly invoices that come in go on those spreadsheets with an approved contract amount. So we're able to monitor and do projections to see if anybody is spending outside of their line items or outside of or is projecting to spend above and beyond their contract costs so that we can let them know that we're seeing an issue when it starts ahead of time. Lastly, with the NTP providers, because they provide services anytime an eligible beneficiary walks in and they don't have to have our approval first, we now have ability to monitor utilization on a monthly basis. So none of these costs just kind of rack up over time without our knowing.
Were there interest and penalties associated with all this?
Not that I'm aware of.
So basically, you had a staff member in charge of this contract that no longer works here, that left without finishing their job, correct?
No, I think it was the culmination of many staff members that were involved. And one of the staff members involved didn't leave, just on an extended leave. And it was just unbeknownst to us how long that leave would be. In addition to just many other, our staffing changes. So just among our management and executive management team, we had a 62% turnover rate in just the last fiscal year, more 18 months. In the last 18 months, we've had a 62% turnover rate, of which we've been able to fill those positions just within the last quarter. Yay, thankfully. But we still have a 23% vacancy rate that we're looking to fill. That's just among the management and executive management team. And so there was significant impacts to the 4 staff that remained, who took up the rest of the vacancies among those 13 executive management positions. And in that, we've been digging to find like where their files at, what kind of projects do we have, being able to project those projects over time. We also have been given approval during the last budget period to hire 3 program specialists, of which 2 of them will be assigned to the executive management team just to do project mapping and project oversight, to be able to now have these projects all on one project management tool. That's one of the first charges, to find what would be the most useful, if it's Planner on Teams, we're not sure. That way, when somebody does leave unexpectedly, all of their projects that they're working on and all of their recurring tasks can be found and are documented somewhere, instead of just kind of leaving with that institutional knowledge.
So excuse me, so counsel, when I talk about an exit interview, this is exactly when I want to stop happening. You're not allowed to quit your job and go off somewhere else. You got to give 2-week notice, but we need to know why they quit, where they're going, and what they were doing before they can leave here, because there's responsibilities here that put on someone else's shoulders that didn't know it existed. So this is why an exit interview is extremely important, so we understand what they were doing when they were here, because evidently no one's watching them. So.
Well, and I think also it's beholden to us, and we'll take full credit in the fact that we also needed to create these project mapping tools. We need to create standard operating procedures so that people can't leave with institutional knowledge. And we need to create policies and standards within our work to make sure that all of our files are on a shared drive, not on a W drive or a C drive, and we are working through our teams. And so just as much as it's on the person who's leaving to make sure that they're doing that kind of succession planning, it's also on us to make sure that we're addressing these. And we have been rapidly addressing them over the 1.5 years that we've all been digging.
So previously, there was no master tickler file, essentially. I mean,
Eric,
Can I?
Eric, Itchen.
Eric Urena, Director of Finance. So I was your auditor for quite a while. I used to do contract compliance. I don't know if this is the case anymore, but when I was auditing at the time, when I asked for a master list of contracts, I'd get an Excel worksheet, which is a big red flag for auditors. I found instances of, people going over contracts and all that stuff. So that's one of the things I wanted to address. We recently did an update in our finance enterprise system that now we have a contracts management module that I'm hoping to implement soon. I have a lot of fires put out, but we sat through a demo with it that should catch these overages and restrict, overages and, they promised a lot of things, but I'm hoping, there's emails that can get shot out. There's warnings, there's more oversight and control, because this for me as the director of finance, this is a big issue for me because, contracts that are going over the authority of the board of supervisors, that's an audit issue. And we're probably going to get popped on that by the auditors when they come and look at it. So it's on my radar. Finance Enterprise has a module. We are paying for it already. We've already sat through a demo. It's just, I know it's important, but I need a little patience to kind of get it rolled out because it's going to take everyone in the whole county to kind of implement that. And
No,
start.
I appreciate that, but what happens is this kind of thing happens and we spend hours in closed session discussing it, how we can fix it. So there's got to be some accountability. So I
Yeah.
appreciate what you're doing.
And I'll keep you guys updated as we get there. But we have a lot of stuff. It's on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions?
The only other comment, is that, this is a Delaware corporation operating out of Texas with a California program.
Right.
So, I don't want to add to the confusion, but there's a lot of moving parts to this.
Yeah, some of it's on their end too. If someone owed me $162,000, I'd have called their boss and say, where's my money at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, when you look at all of the programs that they have statewide, that's probably not a whole big outstanding account for them that they unfortunately will feel that they'll get eventually. But again, this is a Delaware corporation operating out of Texas with a California name.
But I paid a person to make sure it was taken care of and they didn't take care of it and they left.
Correct. And but they have some responsibility on their side as well.
We did have, I will just add that, very.
Correct.
Did have difficulty with different staffing changes after, as we were going to do this as well.
And they did their job. I mean, not financially, but they were taking care of our,
Well, we had a lot
mental
of
health.
things there and with getting things we needed to move the contract piece with over. So that was part of.
But my concern is taking care of the individual customers.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
correct.
Now we're screwing up the bill.
Okay, got it.
Services nothing impacted like that, but they can still go and get it. And like Supervisor Ness pointed out, I mean, this is probably just a drop in the bucket for them. And so now it's so large that, of course, we're trying to fix it, do everything, but nobody would have any, lack of service or anything.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
With that, Mr. Chair, move for adoption.
Motion by
Second.
Nabs, second by Verboen. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes,
Rusty Robinson,
yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Chrissy's not going to come back again.
I'm actually getting more comfortable. So,
Item passes 5 in favor. Thank you for
thank you very much.
your presentations.
And there'll always be retroactivity because you deal with the Department of Health Services of State of California. So I know that you will always have retroactivity involved when you have the state as part of the player.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item B comes Department of Finance. We have
Chairman, members of
one
the
item.
board. Eric Urena, Director of Finance. I'm here to ask you to approve an agreement with Wood O'Brien LLC for post-disaster recovery management services related to the flood that occurred this past winter and spring. As we all know, historic atmospheric river systems resulted in county, state, and federal declarations, disaster declarations. As a result of those declarations, the county is now eligible for FEMA and Cal OES reimbursements. Bad news on that is we got to put the money out front to kind of repair all the infrastructure, the roads, all the stuff that's been damaged by the floodwaters. This contract is to assist me as the cost recovery person of the EOC to, track all the costs and the projects and all that stuff and submit it appropriately with FEMA. FEMA's rules and regulations, we've been to several trainings, are some of the most strict and complex of any federal funding source. And they take sometimes 2-3 years to kind of work through the whole process. Because of that, we issued this RFP in August to get some experts with the technical skills and experience with the FEMA disasters, because this is the first one for Kings County since I think 2010, 2012, and even that was like a small project. Currently, we have 22 projects totaling an estimated $25 million in damages. Majority of that is the roads that are all inundated with the waters in the lake basin. Because of the magnitude of this, we issued that RFP, sent it out to 3 of the vendors that we received from contacts through the trainings. We also posted it online to a procurement website. We received 5 bids, with Wood O'Brien being ultimately the one that was selected after it was being evaluated. Because of their knowledge, skills, and they're actually the consultant for Chester County, so they actually have hands-on experience with this particular disaster. Those services are going to include project development, claim submissions, extension requests, timeline monitoring, technical assistance, appeals, and closeout, to name a few. We expect this process to take multiple years as they're still waiting for the waters to fully recede, full inspections by FEMA, and assessment of all the damages, development of like mitigation, if we're going to look at that. So the contract's expected to go, or it currently is going through September of 2026. Obviously, if that changes, we'll come back to the board and address that at that time. Total amount for the contract is not to exceed $200,000, which has already been included with the fiscal year 2023-24 budget as part of the March 2023 flood budget unit. It's been reviewed by County Council on recess of form. So at this time, I respectfully ask that you approve this agreement with Wood O'Brien LLC, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Quick question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Superman.
So this he'll help manage all the recovery efforts to get it
Yes.
fixed, so such as Houston Avenue, 6th Avenue. Now, we also did cut Grangeville and fix that already.
Yes.
So we'll get reimbursement for that?
Yeah.
So so we also went on someone's private property and cut a couple levees. Will we be able to pay them or fix those levees? Because
That will, again,
Yeah.
they're the experts. We'll kind of rely on their guidance on this. They're ready to go as soon as we sign this agreement. As of now, I don't know if that's eligible just because it's on private property and usually they have insurance that usually kicks in first before FEMA will then kick in reimbursement. So it's probably, I don't want to speak out of line or anything. So they're different rules and
I
stuff.
sent it to staff, but I only got one person replied, so I'll send you the link.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Council, did you have something on that?
I was monitoring for getting into too much speculation on issues that could subject the county to liability. I don't think we crossed that line, but I was just standing by to interject if necessary.
If you toed around it.
No, it's a good question. And so I just got a couple. So there were 5 bids in for this contract. And it says that a review panel picked.
Yeah.
Who would get the contract? Who's the review panel?
It was members of my office.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been sitting on all these FEMA meetings with me and stuff, and I've been prepping them as backups for me. I'll kind of laze with one person.
Is that 5 council that didn't need to come before the board? Usually bids come before the board.
I'm sorry, this is the bid for,
The cost recovery.
There were 5 bids and a review panel that.
yeah, no, the review panel, according to our procedures, will select the vendor and make recommendations to the board to accept that vendor. And our purchasing manager, it looks like he is coming forward, the person who helps navigate the RFPs.
Just want to make sure we're good to go.
Yes,
We
good
don't waste
morning.
nobody's
Evan
time.
Jones, I'm the purchasing manager for the County of Kings. The the process that we use is called a request for proposal, which is acronym RFP. And a proposal is actually different from a bid, meaning that a bid is always, well, typically for goods, and it's always the lowest price unless it's a best value type of bid. A proposal utilizes a scoring system, and within that proposal that we send out, we give certain criteria on what we are going to evaluate and use as criteria, and there's weighted points against it. I'm just going to give an example of 100 points. And then there could be 5 criteria adding up to 100 points. And then the one that gets the highest number of points would be the proposer, would be the winning proposal on that. So that's how that process takes place. And in this case, finance being the subject matter experts for that were the ones that evaluated the proposal.
Okay, so it's an RFP.
That's correct.
Okay, but in the past, the board, the RFPs come and then the board has an opportunity to look at all the bids under the RFP process, and then the board still picks. So I'm not saying that, I'm looking for the power to, hey, we want to be the one to pick. I just want to make sure we're not making a mistake, but unless anything's changed, the board has always, received the RFPs, got a presentation, had the ability to look at the other bids and then choose.
I'm not familiar with all bids coming before the board, for selection.
Thought it was anything over 50K.
Those contracts over 50K have to be brought to the board for approval, but the selection of the vendor and that RFP process is generally done at the staff level. And then the resulting contract is come to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you. And then, has anything changed yet on the ability for, individuals to file claims? I know that we still had some people waiting for that opportunity. Has that opened up yet?
As far as I know, the latest we heard, Kyria and the EOC team kind of put together like data and all that stuff and sent it up to the state, and we still got denied on the individual claim level. Like, we're only eligible for this public assistance with the county, and then as far as I know, the USDA loans, I think.
Okay, all right. So with that, shall I entertain a motion?
Nez move, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Nez. Anyone want a second? No? Second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yeah.
Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thanks.
You're being a tough cookie the last meeting of the year, man. It's supposed to be like boom, 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 boom.
I also thought we did RFP. We've always approved
Yeah.
RFP.
Yeah.
The cheap always in best.
During the pandemic, RFPs were a huge issue on how that rolled out.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, before we close that all the way out, do you mind, since we're under the topic of the flood emergency, so I had someone tell me that on Sunday they were going to the coast and they took Dairy Avenue South all the way down and made that right on Utica, but we know that that's still closed down. So I know you're probably not ready to say, hey, we're going to open up Dairy to Utica, but would you still advise against that? I haven't been out there. I've been going around to Alcoa, then coming back north and catching Utica, but do you have an update on the condition?
Dominic Tyberski, Public Works Director. So we did hire a soils consultant to go out and take 4 samples from all of the road sections that were inundated by the water. Those areas, obviously, they're still underwater. We're unable to open those, but majority of the roads that were submerged, the recommendation is to continue to keep those closed. Even though from the surface, they appear to be dry, the subsoil and the base is saturated in many cases. And if you add traffic loading, especially truck traffic, those roads will start to fall apart in short order. Additionally, per the FEMA guidelines, if we open those roads and then it incurs subsequent damage, it makes us ineligible for funding. So, we have been able to open some of the road segments to kind of alleviate the circulation. I don't have a date for you right now as to when, we need to send the testing lab back out to do some follow-up sampling to see if, the roads are suitable. But then again, we also have to balance that with funding opportunities. So, and additionally, I know we haven't seen rains yet, but they were predicting another heavy year. So,
Yes. I know the sign's still out on I-5 that lets drivers know if you take Utica, there's no access to Corcoran off I-5 north to south, and we had east on Utica. So that's still out there, but I don't know if there's any signage still on the leaving Corcoran on the south side with people going. I know farmers and the trucks have been doing it for months, driving down there.
they
But,
do.
I
They
don't want to see
moved
anyone
the
get hurt.
barricades.
I don't want to see anyone get hurt.
Yeah, they've even moved the key rail, and those are, thousands of pounds, so they push them out of the way. We have, went out with rebar and driven stakes into the ground to stabilize them. So we'll see. We'll see how that works.
All right. All right, thanks, Dominic. Okay, we're moving on. Next item's fire, comes from fire. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Mr.
Got a
Chairman.
couple items this morning.
Yeah, Bill Lynch, Kings County Fire Department here with three relatively simple items, I hope.
I got questions.
I'm sure there's questions.
He's warming up. He's chairman at the next board meeting. He's
That's-
warming up right now.
I would expect nothing less. So. My first item this morning is funding for a fire station remodel project. In August 2023, Public Works brought an item to you, which was approved to actually fund or select a firm to initiate a station remodel project for the Kings County Fire Department. What this is designed to do is to go out and look at our stations, not Station 4, not Station 5, or Station 7, but the other remaining 7 stations, and give us some ideas on improvements that need to be made, facilitating individual sleeping quarters, those type of things, privacy issues, service issues within the stations. And Teeter and Associates was selected as the firm to complete that for us. With that, in the contract came the issue of funding and payment, and they requested quarterly payments. So what I'd like to do, what I'm asking to do this morning, is to be able to transfer the full amount of the contract into the fire department budget so that I can make those quarterly payments to them, not have to come back to your board each time to get that quarterly payment, because this is being funded through the Cal OES pass-through grant for funding that our department receives. So I would like to authorize or recommend that you authorize the transfer of the emergency service grant funding to support the progress payments to Teeter Associates for the fire station remodel project and adopt the budget change. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Move is presented.
Motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Chief, under this analysis, you're looking at the sleeping arrangements as well?
Yes, we're looking at the privacy issues and cohabitation issues in the fire service are an issue for everybody, all fire departments across the country, and we're trying to facilitate those changes. So,
okay.
That took a tour years ago, all the fire stations, and yeah, we need to do some work.
yeah, there's a lot of work needed.
I've had outreach. I spoke with the chief outreach of the firefighters that live in the Corcoran house, and they want their own beds. They want to have their own beds when they come in on shift. They have their own bed, but currently it looks like that model's gone away where if there's just 5 beds and when
They get their own
when your
bedding.
shift come in, you come back, you bring your own bedding.
Yeah, you get your own bedding.
But they want
Bring your
they
pillow.
want their own rack. I don't blame them. I relayed it. So maybe as you guys look at this, chief.
Yeah, we're looking at all aspects. I mean, where we can add bedrooms to facilitate things like that, we will, but we're really confined. We don't want to expand the facilities any. We just want to improve them internally. So creating bedrooms, those type of things, we do have some ability to create some bedrooms, but other ones, maybe not.
All right, thanks, chief. We had a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes 5 in favor. Next item,
Thank
Chief.
you. Here this morning on something I'm really happy to bring to your board's attention and approval is the authorization of purchasing 2 additional type 1 fire apparatus to go along with the 2 that we previously selected or approved. These 2 fire apparatus are what they call stock units, and they are units that are being built by Spartan EBS, which is the provider of the chassis for basically half the fleet of fire service vehicles in the nation. They are stock units that are being built with certain specifications that allow for departments to pick them up and buy them quickly. We were fortunate enough to have our vendor, Apparatus Solutions, contact us and say these units were available. Very happy that they only have a 200-day build time, and they are in progress being built right now. So while that sounds like a long time, it's far and above better than the 600 days we have for the previous 2. So these units are the only thing we can basically do is color and seating arrangements and those type of things. The units come all built the way they're built, 1,000-gallon tanks, 1,500 GPM pumps. They have appropriate compartment space and will suit our needs. Both of them will probably be housed, one at Station 5 and one at Station 4 once we receive these. So I'd like to I'd like to make the recommendation that you authorize the purchase of 2 Type 1 fire apparatus from Apparatus Solutions, authorizing the purchase manager to sign the purchase agreement and then adopt the budget change. And this is a sole source purchase, so it has been approved by the purchasing department. I'd be happy to
This
answer.
is straight grant money as well, or money brought?
This is straight out of our Cal OES grant funding too.
Good work. Good work, Chief. Questions or comments? No move. Second. Motion by Fagundes, second by Robinson. Madam Clerk?
For clarification, I understood that this item was supposed to be changed. Instead of the purchasing manager signing, it was supposed to be the fire chief.
Okay, so you just need a motion to outline that?
If they could accept it as amended.
Are you fine with that? Make the motion. Maker of the motion is fine with that. And second? Right, it's going to Armona too. It's going to your district.
Thank
All
you.
right. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes 5 in favor.
Thank you once again.
Good work, Chief. Item
you.
3?
The last item I have before you is the purchase of 3 Rice fire hose testers. We don't use fire apparatus to test hose anymore. We have units that are actually set up to actually test our hose. We don't want to put the undue burden and strain on the fire apparatus to actually pump hoses up to test them. We do test hose every year, and we have a lot of hose, thousands upon thousands of feet of hose. These testers are going to be collated or located within certain specific areas, so departments can use the hose testers at their time, their need. We currently only have 1 that's passed around 10 fire stations, and it takes almost a year to get all the hose tested. So we're trying to shorten that up, get our people their job done with testing the hose, and actually get them back doing other things too. So this is a sole source again purchase. As Ellen Curtis is the only company that sells the Rice hose tester. There are other hose testers out there. We currently have Rice, and it meets our needs, and we have repair parts for that. So I would like to recommend that you authorize the purchase of 3 Rice National Fire Protection hose testers and adopt the budget change 4/5 vote. And this is also being funded through the Cal OES grant fund.
All right. Questions or comments?
I'll second. I was at a fire one time, and it was a big fire, in Kings County, and the fire operator had the hose and shut it to do something, and it blew.
Oh,
So useless at that point.
yeah. Oh, wow.
It's important to get that fixed before we need it.
Yep. Motion by Robinson, second by Verboon. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
All right.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item passes 5 in favor.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Could we take up the public hearing? It has been noticed, and we may have public either online or in the room that want to speak on that item.
Okay. Board's fine with that. Thanks for reminding us about the time. Okay, 10 a.m. Is that Chuck? Chuck, you coming up for that?
Nope.
Okay, So 10 a.m. will now, on the agenda is a public hearing from the Community Development Agency. Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors. Noelle Tomlinson, planner with the Community Development Agency. The item before you today is a farmland security zone contract modification in relation to lot line adjustment number 2206. Lot line adjustment 2206 will adjust the boundaries between two existing parcels. The boundary adjustment is between one parcel under a farmland security zone contract and one parcel that is not. Therefore, condition of approval for lot line adjustment 2206 is a contract modification to reflect the newly adjusted boundaries by partially rescinding contract number 135 and simultaneously entering into a new contract number 282 with board approval. The current contract is for 92.44 acres, and the new contract will be 93.19 acres, a slight increase of 0.75 acres under contract. The subject property will remain in agricultural use. This lot line adjustment was approved by the Kings County Community Development Agency on February 6, 2023, subject to the modification of the farmland security zone contract. Staff's recommendation is conduct a public hearing on the partial rescission of and simultaneously entering into a farmland security zone contract in relation to lot line adjustment 2206. Adopt the attached resolution, which will find that the rescission and creation of a farmland security zone contract is categorically exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act CEQA Guidelines Section 15317, and none of the circumstances in Section 15300.2 apply. Rescind contract number 135 and simultaneously enter into a new farmland security zone contract number 282. And that concludes my presentation unless there's any questions.
Okay, before we open the public hearing, anyone have a comment? Okay, at this time, we will open up the public hearing, and I'll go to the clerk. And Madam Clerk, is there anyone that filled out a speaker card or sent in an email? Any
I have not
correspondence?
received any written correspondence. It doesn't appear anyone online has their hand raised. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the audience.
Anyone in the audience at this time? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Bring back to the board questions, comments, or action.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Second.
Motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thank
Item
you.
passes 5 in favor. Thank you. All right, so back to item D. Comes from Human Resources. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Ashley Hernandez, Personnel Analyst with the Human Resources Department. I'm here today to recommend that the board approve the revised paid sick leave for extra help employees policy. Due to recent legislative changes, the policy has been revised to update the definition of a qualifying family member and to increase the maximum amount of paid sick leave authorized within a calendar year. Additional cleanup language was also added to make the process clear. So on January 1st, 2023, Assembly Bill 1041 expanded the California Family Rights Act, CFRA, and the paid sick leave by allowing employees to take protected time off to care for a designated person. Additionally, Senate Bill 616 amended California's paid sick leave to expand the mandatory paid sick leave from 3 days to 5 days or 48 hours per calendar year and increase the accrual rate from 6 days to 10 days or 80 hours. The increased paid sick leave requirement will take effect on January 1st, 2024. The paid sick leave accrual rate will not be affected by this amendment. In addition, the revision will not cause a fiscal impact to the county. If approved, the paid sick leave for extra help employees policy will be effective January 1st, 2024. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
All right, thanks for the presentation. Anything from the board? Questions or comments?
No questions, comments, move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Fagundes, second by Verboen. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Item passes 5 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Public Health.
Good morning, Chairman, Supervisors. Rosemary Rand, Department of Public Health. This morning, I'm here to request your board to approve an amendment with the agreement with Dr. Milton Teskey to continue providing services for 6 additional months as the health officer, tuberculosis controller, and registrar for births and deaths in Kings County. Since July of 2016, Dr. Teskey has served as the health officer, tuberculosis controller, and birth and death registrar for the county as required for the California Health and Safety Codes. In addition, Dr. Teskey performs certain pre-employment physicals. He serves as the Child Health and Disability Prevention Program Medical Director and is a physician contact to the California Department of Public Health and the Department of Healthcare Services for the department. On June 20th, 2023, your board amended an agreement to extend Dr. Teskey's agreement for 6 months, while the department, along with Human Resources, conducted a recruitment for a full-time health officer, as this is now a requirement with the California Department of Public Health. On September 12th, Human Resources brought an item to your board to add a full-time equivalent health officer to the Public Health Department, and on October 12th, the recruitment for this position was open. To date, there have been no applicants for a full-time position. For the recruitment. We have received one applicant interested in part-time. The department had noted that it would be beneficial to use a recruitment firm for this level position once an agreement was in place with the vendor, and as you're aware, last week, the recruitment agency agreement was approved. Currently, I'd like to request your board approve the amendment to the agreement with Dr. Teskey to continue serving in the role of health officer, tuberculosis controller, and registrar through June 30th, 2024. This will allow time to perform a thorough recruitment and stay compliant with state regulations. I'm available for any questions.
I have a couple real quick.
Sure.
So last week, the board, as you mentioned, we took up an item to approve $25,000 in funds for a headhunter to go find someone to fill this position.
Correct.
And I did ask if anyone had applied, and we were told no, but actually there was an application that came through that wasn't flagged yet. And I know we spoke on it, so I'm not trying to catch you off guard.
No, no.
I just want to get on the public record.
Sure.
And I didn't get to talk to Carol yesterday because I know she was busy yesterday. She had negotiations all day. So just to clarify. But so what you're pointing out right now, though, is that, yes, the county received one applicant, but the applicant said they would only be available for part-time.
Correct.
Not full-time.
Correct.
So I guess my question is, if Dr. Teskey for the last, I don't know how long he's been here,
2016.
since 2016, if he hasn't been full-time, then why the need to go full-time now? And do you feel the pros and cons, and this might be a human resource question too, the pros and cons of the county spending $25,000 for a headhunter to find someone in the country or the state to come to Kings County to be full-time when we have a doctor in Kings County who's willing to do this 2 to 3 days a week?
Okay,
And save the 25,000.
So currently we have funding to do the recruitment because the state of California has requested full-time. So they've actually provided extra funding if we wanted to use that for the headhunter. So it's not like it's coming out of my realignment funding or anything else. It would be coming out of grant funding. Secondly, currently Dr. Teskey's doing 2 days a week. He's available 24/7 by phone call, but he's in the office 1 to 2 days a week, which is adequate for the bare minimum. It would be really helpful to have a health officer even up to 4 days a week to be available. Currently, we have other staff attending meetings on behalf of the health officer, like the California Conferences of Health Officers that meet at the state regularly. We pay dues for that position, and currently we don't have anyone attending that because a part-time health officer just doesn't have the bandwidth to attend those types of meetings. Currently, I have my epidemiologist sitting in for a position that the health officer should be sitting in. So there's other requirements besides these, but these are the health and safety code mandates. So right now I'm meeting the mandate, but I'm not really meeting the full necessity of a full-time health officer.
Is Dr. Teskey retired?
He is retired
So for
as of 12 months ago.
okay, for $90,000 a year, he can go to a conference and,
He's willing to as able.
but he didn't go.
No.
Okay, so are you saying that the state of California is now mandating that?
Well, they're
Kings County-
requesting it. They're not, they're also saying for smaller counties, if you cannot find one, we need to accommodate to fill that in. So what I would have to do is if I only have a part-time health officer, I have to have an agreement with a neighboring county that their health officer could be available as needed. if there was an emergency.
Does Tulare have a full-time?
They do. Fresno has a full-time and 2 deputies. Madera has a full-time.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's a way we could, at minimum, in regards to the 25,000, and I know it's not general fund money or, and the county coffers is still 25,000 taxpayer money though, to be able to say that, if you interview the applicant, if they're qualified, I imagine they would. It's a physician it's a doctor who's been doing business in Kings County for a long time and has good standing in the community, countywide. Do you have the ability to get this interview done? And if you guys come to an agreement with either that physician or any other physician that might be applying, to call off the services of the headhunter.
So that would depend on when we would probably pull the trigger for the headhunter. I'm assuming, I don't know if Carolyn knows the answer. If they have that ability to stop a recruitment in middle, we might have to prorate the amount of money.
Yeah.
The dilemma is with another part-time is I already have a part-time. So I just, and who is willing to be a part-time health officer.
You're
So-
talking about Dr. Teskey?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I have 2 applicants that want part-time. Will it make a full-time? I don't know, maybe. It's hard to do it with 2 different people, with 2 different delivery systems. But as a recruitment for a full-time, I don't know how far we can prorate that money for a savings. If we go through this process and we still don't find anyone, we'll still have to make a determination. Dr. Teskey is still willing to be the health officer and he's very available to help. I have not met with the other candidate. We've been having difficulty setting up a time to meet. He has a full-time practice as well.
Yeah, but when he reached out to me on Wednesday and our board meeting was the day before and the board was told nobody applied, and for him to reach out and say, hey, I put in an application. Do you know when the county's gonna reach out to me on a yes or no, or to get an opportunity to interview? I'm very interested. And I said, whoa, when did you apply? This morning? Because yesterday the board was told there were no applications. And he said, no, I applied. It's been some time now. And so again, that's surprising.
So can I clarify, because the recruitment was for full-time and the gentleman posted part-time, it doesn't really meet the minimum qualifications. However, I'm still going to entertain interviewing him, but from HR's rules, if you have somebody who applies and puts part-time, they didn't check the box. So I didn't know from HR that there was an applicant for part-time.
Okay.
So you and I were both, until I went back and said, are there any applicants? Yes. One that doesn't meet the qualification, one that wants part-time. Would you like the application? And I said, yes.
So you want to go part-time, 90,000 to full-time to, what was it,
180 to 220, I believe.
You think 220,000 is enough for a doctor to leave their practice and all their patients to come work for the county?
It depends
full-time?
on if you find somebody in public health. I mean, Madera has a full-time, that's about the going salary for their full-time health officer.
And Dr. Chesky, for the record, he's physically here in the office 2 days a week.
1 to 2, and he'll come in whenever I need him.
Okay. The decision to go full-time versus part-time, is that yours or is that the?
It was between the mandate of the state and then mine in looking at the requirements that the state is asking for.
Do you feel that the county would be sufficient with a part-time?
I think it could be. I mean, if that's all we can get, I would do a contract with the neighboring county to support.
Okay. Okay, because we keep extending Dr. Teskey's.
Exactly. So I feel like this 6 months, if nothing happens, then we would need to move forward with just an agreement, whether part-time or full-time, and
This can be
take a
the
break.
third, this can be the third extension, right?
Right.
See, so we're not getting anywhere. So I think we need to make a decision on if part-time is what, for a small county, is what we're going to get. And we get a good local doctor who knows the community and is willing to do it part-time and keep their practice going, no matter who the doctor is. I'm not lobbying for any specific doctor. This happens to be the one doctor that reached out to me And so you're saying besides the doctor that reached out to me last week, there's two other doctors that have applied for
No,
part-time?
there's only the one that we spoke about.
And Dr. Teskey.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if the board wants to,
No, I mean,
bring back to go to a part-time.
not
and
me
move
this time.
forward. I don't know what the realistic expectation is to go full-time when we just keep, upping the current part-time.
well, I think what she's talking about is we went for full-time, we can't find anybody, but now she has two possible part-times. Let her pursue that, see what we can work out with. It's all state guidelines that we have to qualify for, correct?
Right. Right. And then once I do that review, if there's nothing, we can go to just part-time and extend a contract.
I would rather have a good part-time local doctor than someone full-time that we paid $25,000 a headhunter to come from who knows where and doesn't know the community, doesn't know our people. That's my opinion. That would be my opinion on it.
Even if we get candidates from the full-time recruitment, doesn't mean it's going to be a good fit. It still has to go through, your approval. As
And
the
this
board.
allows us to go 6 more months till we find.
And there's always a 30-day notice if we have to terminate the contract. It just allows that time. Ultimately, if there is a good candidate, it would come before the board for an interview, just like we do a department head.
Carol, did you have something? The HR side? Okay. All right.
If there's no more questions or comments, I'll move approval as presented.
Second. Motion by Verboen, second by Robinson. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
I'll do the Verboen, okay.
Doug Verboon,
Okay,
Rusty Robinson, Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, item passes 5 in favor. Thank you.
this is gonna be a long one.
All right. Cut it in half. It's Christmas.
We
All
got
right. So that's admin. We have we got 2 items here. Good morning, Ms. Boyette.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Boyette, Deputy County Administrative Officer, Kings County Administration. So I'm before your board this morning to seek approval of a water transfer agreement between the county and the Mojave Water Agency. So currently, the Kettleman City Community Services District is at risk of losing about 300 acre feet of water if they don't use or transfer the water by December 31st of this calendar year, so within the next couple of weeks. And so they're at risk of losing that because there are limits on how much water a state water project contractor can carry over year to year. So the Department of Water Resources, which is DWR, they have limits on how much you can carry over year to year. And so this is unused table A water that the district currently doesn't have a use for or an ability to store currently. So you're probably wondering how we got here. We go from extreme drought to now at the risk of losing water. So before all of the winter storms of 2023, the county was still very much in drought mode and the water outlooks at that time were still very dim. And so the county, in collaboration with the district as well as the Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District, which is they help manage the county's state water project contract in collaboration with us. We all strategize together to ensure how the district can meet their demands for the year with such limited resources. So we came before your board in January of 2022 to seek approval to buy up to 310 acre feet of state water project table A water from Mojave Water Agency, which your board did approve, so we appreciate that. At the time that was executed, we actually procured 235 acre feet of the 310 because we wanted to only buy what we needed at that time and didn't want to just buy for the sake of buying. So that left essentially 75 acre feet of water still able to be purchased under that agreement that we had. So fast forward roughly 10 months to October of 2022, drought conditions still continued and the water supplies were still a concern for the district. And at that point, DWR still had a 5% state water project allocation. So even the state's water outlook was still very grim at that point. So with that in mind, we went ahead and came back before your board and purchased that remaining 75 acre feet from Mojave, which was the balance of the 310 that we had originally got approval for. So we were in a great place as far as feeling that we can meet the demands with the supplies that we had procured. And then lo and behold, January of 2023, we get hit with more water than we've seen in generations. And so and with that, the DWR increased their state water project allocations to 100%. So they went from 5% to 100% almost overnight. So for lack of a better term, we were drinking from a fire hose at that point, and there's, nowhere for this water to go. Reservoirs were releasing water because it was at risk of spilling because of everything that was coming down from all of the storms. And so with that, that's why we're at this point today at potential risk of losing up to 300 acre feet of table A water. So in order to ensure that the district doesn't lose that water, the district and Tulare Lake, they worked and strategized with Mojave to come to a water transfer agreement that would send the 300 acre feet to Mojave. And then for the course, the term of the agreement, which is all the way through 2038, anytime between now and 2038, the district has an ability to get some of that water back in proportionate to what DWR's state water project allocations are. And so within your agenda packets, you'll see a term sheet. And it's going to be, I believe, term sheet 2 of 2, where you'll see a little table where it lets you know what the state water project allocation is and what the ratio of return is. So just for the record, and we're only able to get water back under this agreement if the state water project allocations are a minimum of 36% of allocation. So if DWR sends a state water project allocation of 36 to 50%, there's going to be a 6-to-1 return on the water that we send to Mojave. So what that means is for every 1 acre foot we get back from Mojave, they're going to keep 6. And then going further on down the ratio, if the allocation is 51% to 75%, that's going to be a 3-to-1 return, meaning Mojave will keep 3 for every 1 acre foot that they return back to the district. And then if it's 76 to 90% allocations, that's going to be a 2-for-1. So they're going to keep, Mojave's going to keep 2 acre feet for every 1 returned back to the county. And then if we have another great water year where allocation is 91 to 100%, it's going to be a direct 1-for-1. So with that, I'm before your board this morning to get essentially contingent approval because there's a lot of moving parts here with not only the county and the Mojave Water Agency, but also with DWR. There's essentially 2 agreements between us and the Mojave Water Agency. So there's the agreement with us and Mojave to send that water to Mojave, and then there's the second part of that transfer agreement where, as the ratios that I just outlined previously, will essentially send that back. And with that, it is the actual Department of Water Resources State Water Project Analysis Office, or what we call SWAPO agreement, that will actually convey that water in the appropriate channels. All of which has to happen by December 31st, or else Kettleman City will lose the 300 acre feet. So a little bit of a different approval than I've been before your board previously. So there's no contracts in front of you that you'll notice. So I don't have any of the 2 transfer agreements with the Mojave Water Agency, nor do I have the DWR SWAPO agreement for you. But what I did provide to you were the term sheets outlining what the deal between the county and Mojave is. And so what I'm asking your board is contingent upon, because essentially I will be getting all of the necessary agreements to execute between now and probably the week of Christmas. So obviously this is our last board meeting this year. So there's no time and there's no board meeting after today in order to bring you the actual agreements once we receive them from Mojave and DWR. So getting a little bit of pre-approval for your board this morning, contingent upon, once we do receive those agreements, contingent upon county council's review and approval. So we're going to be working, around the clock between now and December 31st, getting all of those agreements between all the various parties and getting them properly reviewed by council and proper approval. So with that, that's why you don't have any of those agreements in front of you this morning. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Quick question on the, so when you say Kettleman's might be in danger of losing 310 acre feet of water, you don't mean the contract moving forward. You just mean what the 100% allotment that was allocated to Kettleman this year.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a permanent loss of 300 acre feet. This is just their current year's allocation of table A water that they weren't able to use is at risk of being lost. So,
And we got it at a 1-to-1 basis, correct? Or do
excuse me?
We bought it at 1-to-1, or we used the 1-to-1 water during the flood?
Yeah, we used and if I get some of this incorrect, I do have JJ and Chantal online from Tulare Lake, but the way I understand it is, we used or are still storing everything that we can and have used our table A water that was allocated to Kettleman, and also used some of the Mojave water that we had bought earlier in the year. The water that's at risk of being lost is the water that was allocated to the district itself. So
This year. And
correct.
And we're physically not storing that, right? That, is that in the aqueduct?
It's my understanding it's currently in the San Luis Reservoir right now.
It's in San Luis Reservoir.
Yeah.
How come it can't stay there then?
There's limited capacity to house everything in the reservoir because there's water coming in and water needing to come out, and there's only so much capacity in San Luis. And so DWR set regulations in the state water project that limits the amount that everybody can store. So if everybody stores 100% allocations, there's not that capacity in San Luis, to my knowledge. So there's limits on what people can store, which is currently you can't store more than 50% of the current year allocation. So.
Okay, so just in simple terms.
Yes.
Okay. This year we got our allocation. We start off the year, we got our usual, 5% or
Yes.
very low, because we never get 100% allocation.
Correct.
And 100% is 310 acre feet of water. The community needs roughly 93 acre feet to get through a year, right?
So 100% allocation for Kettleman is, I think, 900 acre feet.
Oh, it's 900.
Yeah, their
So-
yearly demand is about 310.
So when you say a 100% allocation, would it be 900 acre feet of water is what you're talking about?
Correct, but we're able to store at least half of that and roll that over into the next year. We can't roll over any more than 50% of that.
Okay, so in simple terms, all we're saying is because of the flood, we got all this extra water.
Correct.
And you want to move it from point A and store it in point B. So over the next, until 2028, right?
2038.
Until 2038.
Yes.
We have that water there. So if things go back to the way they were, where we only get allocated 5 or 10% of our water allocation. And then in those years, there's been times where we've had to go seek and buy extra water. You're just saying, let's store this extra water at this location. And 3 or 4 years from now, we need to buy extra water. Instead of being 911 status, we know that we can go to this storage facility that we have and say, hey, we need some of that water back to get through this year.
Correct, yeah, that would essentially be storing it over with the Mojave Water Agency. And the allocations from DWR would have to be at a minimum of 36% in order for us to get that back, so.
Okay. And this action is just to benefit the community or the commercial area?
It's for
41
both
and 5.
residential and commercial. So it's water that is allocated for the entire community of Kettleman City. And so.
Okay. What about any farmers?
Came from Westlands originally.
JJ or Chantal on the line, do you have any, I see JJ's hands up.
Yeah, Matthew, hi, Board of Supervisors. It's JJ Westra from Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. Matthew, you did a good job of explaining the transfer package there. This water would only go, as you're right, towards Kettleman City Community Services District, which serves both residential and commercial within the CSD service area. None of this water would go to the farmers. It's only for the Community Services District.
All right, thanks for clarifying. All right.
Thanks, JJ. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the
No problem.
presentation.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a
Super Robinson.
So the original agreement was with Mojave. And so I guess that's my presumption why we're working again with Mojave. Are we able to go outside of that agreement to make these salvages possible, or it has to be with Mojave?
I don't think it has to be with Mojave. I think they were just a willing participant and somebody that had the capacity to take water. I mean, everybody's got, no pun intended, water up to their ears, and it's hard to find places for it. And Tulare Lake and the district, kind of strategized and worked to find a good deal for the community. And Mojave was a good suitor for that, and had capacity and the ability to help us out in that regard.
So those allocation percentages, is that a Mojave agreement, or is that Department of Water Resources, or where are those percent? I guess where I'm going with that is, are you able to get a better deal somewhere else or not?
JJ?
I guess, yes, thanks you. Again, I think this is kind of like the equivalent of there's about 5 gallons of ice cream floating around, and I've had a whole lot of it, and I don't need a lot more. But basically, Mojave is willing to buy a gallon of ice cream off of us, or give us a gallon of ice cream. But these percentages are basically set with Mojave. And I think when we go to do the repayment side, I think we'll try and maximize water delivery. So we have the ability when we take the water to schedule the water, and I think we'll try and maximize to the benefit of Kettleman City.
So it's your opinion that we're lucky to have this deal?
I think we're extremely lucky to have this deal. A little bit more background. We actually tried for about 2 or 3, 4 months to talk with other contractors. We thought maybe we had some initial deals initially with some other irrigation districts, water contractors. None of those deals panned out. Mojave at the last minute did step up, and in my opinion, I think we're very lucky to at least save some of this water and get some of it back. And I'll quit talking after this, but I think this could build upon future exchanges maybe, but this is an excellent thing in my opinion.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
And I know that Mojave purchased a lot of water, transfer water from our area, from growers that couldn't afford to keep it. So we need to keep the line of communication open, and that they can help us out at tough times. It'd be nice to use the water, but it's the value to it. So why would you buy water you can't use? So therefore, if Mojave will work with us when we're in dire need, this is what we have to do to survive it. And I'll make a motion to accept it as presented. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Motion by Verboen. Second by Robinson. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Item passes 5 in favor. You got one more?
Yes, sir. All right, and then Dom, if you can start sharing the PowerPoint, please. Thank you very much. If you can go to the next slide there, Dom, appreciate it. So I'm before your board to seek a little direction on our county's implementation of Senate Bill 1383. I know it's been a while since I've been before your board for Senate Bill 1383, so for those in the audience and those online and the public that aren't as familiar, just wanted to give a brief, overview of what 1383 is. So it's a unfunded mandate of a comprehensive recycling, legislation there that kind of aims at reducing greenhouse gas emissions by reducing the amount of organics in our landfills and items that have the propensity to decay out of the landfills. And so they want to do that with kind of a two-pronged approach there by addressing organics waste hauling, as well as implementing some measures to recover edible food to repurpose back out into the community. And so implementation will generally take two forms, either a free market approach where any hauler can come and provide service in the county, and any generator can procure service from any hauler, and or they can self-haul the trash themselves, or which is the model that your board has chosen, which is the franchise zone model, where the county is divided up into various franchise zones and haulers are assigned a specific zone for which, depending on where your address falls within those zones, you are, if you are wishing to procure hauling services, you will have to go to that specific hauler. And then under that model there, the haulers are responsible for the organic waste side, and the county will be responsible for heading the edible food recovery program, which I believe the Department of Public Health was before your board either last week or a couple of weeks with a grant that will help fund some of those efforts. So with that, ever since your board gave that direction to go the franchise zone route, county staff have been working diligently with all three of our haulers, and we've been making great progress so far up to this point. We've actually finalized what the franchise zones look like. So that is done. And we have actually started the initial review and the initial draft of what the franchise zone agreements will look like. So next slide, please, Dom. And within those conversations with the haulers, there was a discussion that came up as to one detail of implementation that we want to bring to your board for some direction, and that is mandatory versus non-mandatory collection, and both of which can still exist within the franchise zone model that we have. And so under the mandatory collection model, generators, they don't have a choice. They must subscribe to service under that hauler that is designated to their zone. There's no option to self-haul. And so with mandatory service, that will trigger a Proposition 218 election, or what we call Prop 218. And more of the onus is placed on the haulers because there's going to be no self-haulers, so they have more folks to look after. Now, to the flip side of that is non-mandatory collections. So giving the generators free choice as to if they want to procure service from the hauler designated in their franchise zone, or if they want to self-haul their own trash, which at this point, the only area in which they could self-haul would be King's Waste and Recycling. So that adds a little bit more responsibility on the county side, because we would essentially have to track, monitor, educate, and report on those that do elect to self-haul. So in our conversations with the haulers that we've had over the last several months, they're fine with either mandatory or non-mandatory collection. They have no preference either way. Next slide, please, Dom. So the primary considerations of why you might consider one or the other. So in mandatory collection, obviously one of the large considerations there is the triggering of the Prop 218 election. And so in our conversations with both internal county staff and with the haulers, there are some concerns over the success rate of a Prop 218 election. We've had some haulers that are having or have had issues with Prop 218 elections in some neighboring counties. And we've also had 2 local Prop 218s fail, although they're not related to organic waste hauling, but in fact related to water rates and over at the groundwater sustainability agencies. But there is a, 2 failed Prop 218 elections here within, the recent months. So with that, another cost to consider if we do go the mandatory route and have to do a Prop 218 is the expense of actually administering that. And so a very, very rough estimate there, as you'll see, it could cost the county of upwards of $332,000 and some change to actually go through all of the hoops to get a Prop 218 done. And that doesn't guarantee a success rate on that. So if we go forward with that, spend that money, and the Prop 218 fails, we now have to spend that again if we want to, do another Prop 218. So another consideration as far as mandatory collection goes, in talking with Lozano Smith, who is our outside counsel that works closely with our implementation team on this about mandatory versus non-mandatory, they work extensively with a lot of SB 1383 clients, and to their knowledge, they're not aware of any mandatory collection models out there. So again, that's just something to consider as well. So on the flip side to that, on the non-mandatory collection side, the biggest consideration there, given everything that I just laid out previously, is we don't have to do a Prop 218 election, because at the end of the day, the generators have free choice as to if they want to procure service from the hauler designated to their area, or if they don't like that hauler, if they don't like the hauler's rates, they do have the ability to self-haul, source separated all the way to King's Waste and Recycling. So with that, in discussions with county staff and in developing the franchise zones with the haulers and everything, we've come to the conclusion that the amount of generators that are currently self-hauling is fairly low. And so as of right now, there's not a large issue with those electing to self-haul. And we have a good feeling that we have the capacity to address anything that might arise. But as of now, self-hauling is not an issue, and we would, more than likely be able to handle those that are currently self-hauling that would probably elect to continue to do so if we went to the non-mandatory collection model. With that, a couple other pieces to consider there. Our neighbors there at Fresno County, they have an exclusive franchise zone non-mandatory model, and it's working out very well. And then with that, another large consideration here, as we're, under a corrective action plan with Cal Recycle to implement this as fast as possible. Implementing under a non-mandatory model would be much faster implementation process, because we don't have to do the Prop 218 and the time it takes to get the Prop 218 done, let alone the Prop 218, if your board so chooses to go that route, would probably look to be on the November 2024 ballot, unless we do a special election, which has additional costs too. So next slide, please, Dom. So with that, I'm really before your board this morning to see what version of the franchise zone model you wish to implement, whether it's mandatory or non-mandatory. So that way we can go ahead and finalize the appropriate language within the franchise zone agreements with the haulers and get implementation done in a timely manner. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And if I can't, I do have the folks from Mid-Valley Disposal here. So thank you folks for being here, as well as I do see the Thule folks, Thule American there as well. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
What's the penalty to not do anything?
So there's potential fines of $10,000 per day if we just essentially throw our hands up and say we're not going to do anything with SB 1383. And
even also unfunded mandate.
Correct.
Unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
So the non-mandatory looks like the option to go, since nobody else is mandating on anybody else. But I'm glad the haulers are here and the companies are here. Thank you for being here. That being said, so I understand they're probably already sending out letters to people in the community. But is it any of the county's responsibility, or do we have the funding to promote this? Or is it up to the haulers to send you a letter and say, hey, Ms. Boyette, as of such and such date, we're no longer going to be picking up your waste on Tuesday mornings unless you go into business with us, and here's how you get in business with us, or you will be having to self-haul and go to the landfill, so whose responsibility is on that? Because I know we're all going to wake up one day and we're going to be on social media, and someone's going to say, hey, Richard, hey, Super Boone, no one picked up my trash in the last 3 days. What the hell is going on? So how can we get the word out?
yeah, so depending on how your board wishes to proceed, we can kind of work out those kinks to make sure that, like, let's say we do end up going the non-mandatory route, work it out logistically between the haulers and us to figure out the best way to notify everybody to say, hey, as of this date, these are your two options. We haven't, sussed out any of those details yet. We're, getting direction today. If that is the direction, we will definitely go and strategize between the county implementation group and the haulers to ensure that efficient and effective messaging is distributed out to all the generators to let them know essentially what the deal is and the timeframes, so that way no one's caught off guard and everybody has time to prepare. So we could definitely do that.
Is there anyone that'd like to provide any additional information? Thanks again for being here. Morning, sir.
Morning, Jeff Martin, Thule Trash Company. For the majority of our area, most of the people are already our customers. They're already customers that are already subscribing to our service. And most of them are very close to being in compliance. So this isn't going to be a shock. This isn't going to be one morning they're going to get a letter or anything like that. We're slowly going to work with these customers to make sure that they're aware and give them the proper steps to do it. Going with this non-mandatory route, I like that a little better, less shoving it down your throat. Let's work with the people. Let's find the best options for them. Because some people may be in compliance, but they're using different methods. And so if it's not successful, then we can come back to the drawing board and we could work on a different model. But this is much more approachable for our folks. And like I said, we're already working with them. They're already our customers, and we already have methods to reach out to them. And I mean, just like we're dealing with our holiday routes and bumping it one day late. So.
Yes, sir. Thanks again. Thanks for your service to the community. Outside of just talking too. Thank you, guys. Morning, sir.
Good morning, Chair, board members, staff. Joe Kalpikoff, owner of Mid Valley Disposal. To piggyback a little bit what Jeff said, there's probably 98.5% of the customers currently subscribing for service in Kings County will stay with their current hauler. So there's not going to be a big migration between areas. It's non-mandatory now. So if you want to have collection, you have to call a company and subscribe for service. And so we feel like people who currently want services have services, and those who want to self-haul now, self-haul now. So I think the non-mandatory is probably the easiest direction to move forward with. I want to say that I'm looking at the maps and the customers, there's probably only about 25 customers that are going to switch in the entire county. So it's a real tiny piece. I want to thank your staff for working with us in the past 8 months on this. It's been multiple meetings, a lot of work, but I think we've got, we're 90% way down the field here to get this implemented. Some people will get new carts next year, the recycling that the state's mandating. That's going to be their choice to say, I don't want them or I want them.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you again for your contributions outside of just hauling waste to the community. All right.
If there are no questions or comments, I'll make a motion for non-mandatory.
Second. Questions? Okay.
That way,
Motion
if
by,
you want to buy a goat, you can. They do the same thing.
motion by Verboen, second by Fagundes. Madam Clerk?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Item passes 5
Thank
in
you, Fred.
favor. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, so now we're to board member announcements. Supervisor Nez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, the Kings County Homeless Cooperative had a meeting. There is some bylaw reviews, and they'll be coming to this board in the new year. Also under discussion were all of the community outreach and public information, community engagement, and some of the other electronic type discussion with webpage and design. Also yesterday, the South Fork Kings GSA Finance Committee had a meeting, and at that time, with the failure of the second 218 election and not very much funding left to be able to continue that operation, we're looking at the budget extremely close and looking at options in the future. And then continue to make Santa visits throughout not only Kings County, Tulare, and Fresno County. And just want to thank everyone this season and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Where do you get your energy from, Stephen? That's got to be that's a tremendous amount of energy.
I kind of like it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, God bless.
So that helps.
Yeah. God bless you. for
You
that.
got a complaint box?
I'll bring the complaint. I have some real small little papers that say complaint form.
I'll return the call.
Exactly. No, California won't let you bring coal in anymore, so you have to get socks and underwear. And if you're really bad, you get dirty socks and dirty underwear. But, state of California won't let you import coal into California, so we had to come up with a death of region.
Oh, my gosh. Well, thank you again. Superintendent.
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with all the parties and functions that are going on within the staff, and it's good to see everybody just working together and with their departments and doing something that we really need.
Yes, so. Yeah, so that's a nice tie clip right there. I like the bling. You're trying to be competitive with my ring.
It's not, it won't match your ring, so your ring will cover this.
Definitely.
Can't see that.
Very nice. Super Verban.
Nothing to report.
Nothing. Super Robinson.
Tuesday, met with Armona Community Service District. We discussed lighting, the park, and homelessness. Thanks to Chuck Kenny for your research that you did on the park out there. Wednesday, Christmas luncheon with supervisors and staff and old jail tour. Supervisor Verboon, Sheriff Robinson, Mayor Payton, and Vice Mayor Karras. Thursday, office party with Santa and Mrs. Claus and staff Rugrats, including my own. So cookie decorating was a hit. So thank you to Supervisor Neves. And then Monday, I met with Victor Shavarin from Field Rep for Senator Hurtado on priorities and budget requests and toured the Ramona Senior Center.
All right, good work, good work. I want to thank the program Wreaths Across America. I saw the story in the Hampshire Sentinel last night, but a gentleman had reached out to me, said they were going to deliver some wreaths to the 5 Pillars of Freedom. And I drove by there this morning. They brought 4 of them. So one of the monuments doesn't have a wreath, and I think it's the Navy. I think it's the Navy monument so anyways, if anyone around the county, department heads have a wreath lying around extra, I'll probably be here another hour. If you want to donate it, I'll go and I'll take it to the monument. I want to get back to Corcoran right now. So word out to anyone who has a wreath, bring it to Catherine or Diane. And then Thursday, I want to thank Dominic. They had a late night in Kettleman City. They came out, they brought the consultant firm that's doing the design for the pedestrian bridge, different options of it. And so we sat there in the cafeteria and saw the presentation on the big screen and just learned on some of the timelines, some of the progress and different research on some of those variables there. So thank you. I really like that firm. They seemed really squared away on there. And thank you for your time as well, to you and your team. And then lastly, Catherine, I know that when we adjourn the next meeting, it is Tuesday, January 2nd at 9 a.m. Are we going to be in the new chambers or are we going to be here?
Be in here.
We'll still be here. Till about February. Okay. All right. And then, so I just want to close by saying thank you to my colleagues at the board. Wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And thank you for the privilege of allowing me to serve as chairman this year. And I don't take that for granted. So thank you. And we'll adjourn the meeting, go into closed session.
No report from Megan, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know.
Announced inspection of the probation department from the California Board of State and Community Corrections dated November 15th, 2023. For upcoming events, Hanford's Winter Wonderland is still occurring in the Hanford Civic Park through January 7th, 2024. Weekday hours have been changed this week. It's open Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and Saturday through Sunday from noon to 9:30 p.m. Tickets can be purchased online. Corcoran will have their Christmas in the Park on Thursday, December 21st at 5:30 p.m. at Christmas Tree Park. And for your upcoming agenda items, the agenda for January 2nd only has one item. Administration will be taking the item for board committee assignments for 2024. And that concludes my report.
All right. I miss nobody else. We're ready. All right. Now we're adjourned. For reals this time.